Markup's now called to order. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House Armed Services Military Personnel Subcommittee markup for HR 2810, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2018. The subcommittee mark in front of you is a product of an open bipartisan process. The mark provides our warfighters, retirees, and their families the care and support they need, deserve, and have earned. Specifically, this year's proposal would provide the tools necessary to rebuild and grow the armed forces for the future, including an increase in strength for the military services and an extension of special pay and bonuses for service members designated to enhance retention in high-demand specialties like Air Force aviation. Additionally, the subcommittee has recommended to the chairman that the committee mandate and fully fund the bylaw pay raise of 2.4% for all of our military personnel. The mark would also improve support to those suffering from post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury by enhancing the process for consideration of discharge upgrades by the military review board agencies and ensuring service members understand their rights related to applying for improved VA benefits, important VA benefits. In addition, the mark would support the recent military health system organizational reform by ensuring the services have a central role in the operation of military medical treatment facilities, as well as emphasizing the importance of maintaining inpatient capabilities for military treatment facilities located outside the United States. Finally, the proposal would continue to refine sexual assault prevention and response by adding a new provision to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, specifically prohibiting non-consensual sharing of intimate images, expanding special victims counsel training to include training on the unique challenges often faced by male victims, and clarifying the process by which a designated representative can be appointed for a victim prior to a court-martial. In conclusion, I want to thank Ranking Member Spear and her staff for their support in this process. Of course, we are joined by an active, informed, and dedicated group of subcommittee members. Their recommendations and priorities are clearly reflected in this mark. Before we get to consideration of the mark, I want to recognize Ms. Spear for any remarks she may want to make.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. The subcommittee mark includes provisions that will provide the military services flexibility to recruit and retain members of our armed forces and to continue our commitment to taking care of military families. Okay. The mark includes the Private Act, which I co-authored, and many of the members of the subcommittee have sponsored with Congresswoman Martha McSally to prohibit unlawful broadcasts or distribution of intimate visual images and ensure the military services have the tools to prosecute those that violate the law. The mark also provides support for victims of sexual assault by mandating training for special victims counsel to recognize and address unique challenges often faced by male victims of sexual assault. The mark also continues the committee's emphasis on families by including $30 million for continued assistance to local education agencies and authorizes the reimbursement of spouses for state professional licenses and certifications when required to relocate to another state with their military spouse. The subcommittee continues to provide oversight of important programs by including in the mark reviews by the Comptroller General of the United States to ensure the morale, welfare, and recreation programs are properly funded to required levels and that the Department of Defense debt collection practices are fair and do not place undue burden on service members and their families. I'm pleased that the mark emphasizes the consideration of post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury during reviews by the Board for Corrections of Military Records by codifying into law the requirement to review these cases with liberal consideration and requiring the boards to consider medical evidence in these cases from the VA and civilian healthcare providers. The mark also requires the Secretary of Defense to create a plan to notify service members how to donate to DoD's brain tissue repository in order to further TBI research. I'm concerned the subcommittee's mark increases the active Army by 10,000 soldiers and also includes significant increases for the reserve component. I recognize the Chief of Staff of the Army submitted an unfunded requirement for this increase. However, we still do not have a strategic plan from the Pentagon that would inform Congress how large the Army should grow and why. Further, by just adding funding to the NDAA, this committee is not providing the stable, predictive funding the Army needs. This could lead to a hollow force should Congress not appropriate the additional $3.9 billion fully burdened costs. I look forward to working with the chairman to ensure we resource our military services in a responsible manner. I also hope to work with the chairman as we move forward to full committee to find the required offsets to fund an extension to the Special Survivors Indemnity Allowance for military widows to ensure it does not expire in May 2018. This falls short of my strong desire to permanently fix the survivors' benefit compensation offset for receiving dependency and indemnity compensation. This offset amounts to a shameful tax on surviving spouses who are already struggling emotionally and financially. While the SSIA extension would be an important temporary fix, I hope this subcommittee can make a permanent fix to the offset a priority for the next year. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the good working relationship that we have had with the chair and the outstanding staff work done by both the majority and the minority and their tireless efforts on behalf of all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ranking Member Spear. We will now proceed to mark up HR 2810, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2018. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. Copies of our subcommittee mark and director report language were made available and distributed to member offices on June 20th. Is there any discussion or questions on the subcommittee mark? If there is no further discussion, the chair lays before the members the text of the subcommittee mark for consideration. Without objection, the mark is open to amendment at any point. Are there amendments? Okay. The question now occurs on the adoption of the mark. So many as are in favor will say aye. 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 Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the mark is adopted. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Bacon, for the purpose of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the subcommittee's report the mark favorably to the full committee.
The question is on the motion. The gentleman from Nebraska has made. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Quorum being present, the ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Without objection, members have 5 legislative days within which to submit written statements into the record. So ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that staff be authorized to make necessary conforming technical and clerical changes and to remove from the mark provisions that would cause the mark to refer to other committees or would result in additional direct spending or would result in an earmark. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further legislative business before the subcommittee, this meeting is adjourned.
Nice and efficient, huh?
Thanks. You know, I think you made a really good point on that in-string stuff. And,